Welcome back to the Hockey X podcast. I'm Mason Hackle. I've been studying the best athletes in the world and listening to the best hockey players in the world, and I'm here to share that knowledge with you. I apologize, my voice is a little raspy today, but we are still going to go ahead with this little system here. I am currently at Sharks Ice in San Jose watching the players that are out here do their practices. So if you hear pucks in the background like that was, there's another one coming. We'll just do the best that we can talking over it. It's interesting. I'm just watching what these players are doing, and I know it's not a full team practice and things like that, but it's still very interesting to me that these guys don't practice the way that I do, first off. And secondly, there's no evidence of video feedback or anything like that. I mean, there's like one guy with an iPad right here, or actually that's like a Microsoft like tablet, it seems like. And they're using that to, I don't know, maybe gauge how fast this guy is going or something like that. But really, there's nothing that they use that uses video feedback where they're looking at themselves do the drills that they're doing. That's the first thing that I notice. And like I I have to admit, like when I look at my own skating next to what I've seen from a lot of these these other players skating, a lot of them don't have an outside edge. That's the first thing that I notice, and they don't have a rocker on something like that. And second thing is like they're trying to do the drills fast because it's like, oh, you got to have it at an NHL speed. But going back to the video feedback thing, it's like if you look at someone like a McDavid, where they're not going super fast in all the drills, or maybe their feet don't move technically as quickly, if you want to call it that. Like if they had video evidence, they wouldn't have to be doing drills that maybe are effective and maybe are not effective, and that, well, it's like, I don't know. Most of these drills that you're seeing are just passed down from generation to generation. I'm listening to Mike Ricci, by the way, to tell the players out here to, oh yeah, you just got to snap the stick to get your hands out and things like that. It's like, well, if we look at the video evidence, that's not what they're doing. It's like, so, and yeah, he's doing it again. I'm looking at him. It's like, you got to step on this foot. It's like, well, where's the ankle collapse? Where's like getting on the four edges? Like, how do you match yourself up against a Connor Bedard? How do you match yourself up against a, like, you know, Ovechkin, a Line, a Matthews? Like, how do you look compared to these other players? These coaches are not doing it, and they're in the fucking NHL. These are NHL level coaches, and they're not doing this. It's like I'm doing it next to them, and it's like it's been proven at this point that it gives better results. Like I'm a case study at this point. Anyone who's gone through a little bit of the Train 2.0 system, I would say Jason Lee's a case study. I would say Sean O'Donnell is a case study. I would say you could name a few others probably who are in the Train 2.0 system and who have also gone through like my system as well in the case studies that I'm growing. It's like what these coaches are doing is not what I'm doing, and it's not producing the same results. And what I mean by that is that what they're teaching to these fourth line players should work to make them progress from being a fourth line, bad player into being a first line good player or things like that. And honestly, that's not what's happening. They're still doing the same power skating cone drills that are from 20 years ago. That is just like, oh, just go around the cone. They don't specify exactly what the footwork is. It's just like, hey, just open up your hips in this position for a mohawk. And it's like, well, what happens with the ankle? What happens with the hips? What happens with all of that in relation to a Sidney Crosby, who is really good at it, or a Cale Makar, who is really good at it, or any other player? It's like, there's none of that. None of that is happening out here. And, like, again, NHL level coaches who are, looking at this stuff. And, well, it just goes to show you that when I am working on with Hockey Hacks and with my friends at Train 2.0 and ATG, this is a growing proof that we have a system that is going to be more effective than what you have out here. Maybe, to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe it gets these players slightly better from, maybe they go from fourth line to third line, or they go from AHL to like fourth liner in the NHL or things like that. It's like, I don't know, maybe that helps. But I'm going to tie it back to the standards, which I want to keep talking about. It's like, how do you know exactly if you're at an NHL level or not? It's like, it's not enough for me to just listen to a coach. I have to see myself comparatively with an expert model. And if a coach cannot do what the expert model can do, in this case, these coaches cannot do what the best players can do, and the coaches will admit it themselves. It's like, well, these players, you can't teach what these players do. Like, you hear that all the time. You cannot teach what these players do. It's like what the best players do. It's like you hear that all the time with McDavid, Makar. I don't know. Name someone else. Crosby, like Ovechkin. It's like you actually can learn what they do as far as movements. Maybe it's harder to learn what they do in the moment, but as far as like understanding their patterns, that's all learnable. As far as understanding their mechanics and the way that they move, that's all learnable. And you don't do that by mindlessly paying attention to a power skating book that's 20 years old. No, you have to match how they work today. It's like they're trying to do a step wide drill around like an obstacle right here at the moment. That's what the shots are for. And it's like, I seen Cole Caulfield score a very similar goal to what these guys are trying to do, and like that's not as deceptive as like they're making it out to be. Caulfield's goal is way more deceptive than what these guys are doing, and he doesn't move his feet as much. Like, these guys are like trying to stride towards the obstacle and then take their shot afterwards. But it's like Caulfield doesn't move his feet in the specific shot, and he gets it off on net. And it's like, yeah. There's the hands out cue again. It's like, I want to stress this again. We have something very special brewing up with the Hockey Act system, and I want to change hockey training. That's my objective. Like, that's my intention as well. I want to change hockey training because the stuff that I'm seeing, especially out here and in a fucking NHL practice, is like, that is definitely not what I've done to improve myself and to get myself to literally an NHL level. And I can actually measure it because we have the standards. We have measurable standards that you can actually break down and like call myself. It's like, hey, I have mastered the movements here, here, and here at this specific cadence, and it's allowing me to go from a 17-second lap time to a 15-second lap time and below for a fastest lap, and it's increasing in speed, by the way. Now, obviously, it's not a 13.5 like you see with McDavid, but from 17-18 to 15-14, like where I'm at now, well, like, not skating as much, it's like, where did that come from? It's like, it's all from this training that you see here that is just not being taught. It's like, what I'm teaching is not being taught. And I got even more confirmation just from watching this simple practice where they're supposed to be working on their skills because it's the rehab guys, but it's like, where's the video evidence? Where's the iPad that you have out here? Like, to look at yourself next to an Austin Matthews and notice your differences. Like, these guys are just, oh, we're just going to do the drill and trust the coach's eye. It's like, okay, that's not good enough for me. I don't learn that way. I have to see myself do it because I know that that's how I make the most progress. And that's how every one of you listening as well learns as well. It's not enough for you to just trust the coach's eye if you really want to get better. You have to see yourself doing the drill. It's not enough. It's also not enough to just, send someone video if you don't actually look at the video of what you're doing. It's like, well, why don't you just look at yourself instead of just trust the coach's eye? You guys have way more power in you to look at yourself. And if you want to make more progress with your development, that is what you have to do. Now, I am trying to help you out to make that process more streamlined, and same thing with a bunch of other coaches who do video feedback. But if you don't look at your own video, like, what are you doing, respectively? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you actually trying to get better? If you film yourself and then don't look at your video, I seriously question if you're actually invested in your training or development or not. And that is, again, what this is all about. I talk about that all the time. Are you invested in your training or not? It's like this is a part of it. It's like, if you were actually invested in your training, you would look at yourself and compare yourself with an NHLer who you're trying to model, who is actually good at this and who's mastered the standards at it, and you would model them. You would not model someone who like played in the NHL 20 years ago, like a Mike Ricci. With all due respect to him, with everything else that he knows about positional games that I don't know and different things like that, it's like, this guy does not move like a Connor McDavid, and he shouldn't be teaching skating because of that. I move closer to a Connor McDavid, and I should actually be teaching. I'm more qualified than him. Like, I'm criticizing an NHL level coach. It's like, I'm way more qualified to teach skating than he is, because I can actually skate at the level that these skaters are playing at. It's like, he is not there. I don't care if he's like 20 or 30 years older than me. It's like, it's just not there. He can teach positional stuff and development stuff, like other development stuff aside from, skills and things like that, because they're simply outdated. Especially if you don't use film. I would hope that they use film, because the team needs to improve, and that's actually how you do it. But like, if they don't, they're leaving a lot on the table, and like, yeah, there's a snapping of the stick again. It's like, that's not what Austin Matthews does. That is not what Elias Pettersson does. That is not what a Connor Bedard does. That is not what every other great shooter in the game does. It's like, how do you not see this? Again, I am looking to change how hockey training is performed and how it's done. And like, because what I've learned is actually what works a lot better than what is being taught. It gets literally transformational results. I couldn't believe it when I started to move a lot differently. Like, my film from even 10 years ago is completely different than it was from a 5 years ago standpoint, which is completely different from what it is today. It's like, it's crazy to me. And it's not because I did the traditional power skating books or, videos that way. It's like, I did something different that got me better results. And it's like, I'm trying to teach that to the rest of you. And that's what we have coming for, excuse me, a 2024. It's like, this is going to be big. Hockey Hack is going to be extremely big. Not only do we have reverse engineered programs and systems and exercises from just looking at what the best players do, we also have ways that you can progress to the standards that these players have set. Because it's not enough to just dissect people's movement and then, anyone can match people's movement when they do it slow enough. But when you do it at an NHL level cadence, that's completely different. The biggest difference between someone who's not in an NHL and someone who is, and someone who's the best player, it's the rhythm at which they do their footwork and the way that they move. It's the rhythm at which they move, which may show up in a fast lap, but it also may show up in quick stick handlings that you see in type. You need the ability to do both, which is what McDavid has mastered. It's the same thing with shooting. It's like these guys can shoot all different ways, but all of their shots are 70 to 90 miles an hour. Someone like an Austin Matthews has mastered that. And basically every other good scorer. It's like there's puck tracking technology nowadays. Like every single shot that you take, whether it's a wrist shot or a slap shot, it's 70 to 80 to 90 miles an hour. It's like if you're not looking at this, if you're not dissecting what these standards are set between players, it's like that's what I'm aiming to do for the rest of you, is to pave this path that is not being set. And it also applies to the fitness as well. It's like because I have more to say on the fitness front. Like this will be a separate topic, but I was talking to some like trainer friends too, and we were looking at a book that had a bunch of hockey workout programs, hockey specific workout programs, if you want to call it that, even though I don't believe in anything that's sport specific aside from doing the sport itself. We're just looking at the programs, and it's like we were almost laughing at it, because it's like in many ways that is not the programming for off ice that I used to literally transform my body into what it is now. If I had continued what the program in this book was talking about, I would have had injured hips for way longer. Like, that would not have worked. And what happened instead was I did the ATG methodology, and I just completely changed my body. It's made me way more athletic, way more conditioned, way more able in all facets. It's like, who cares if I'm able to do the splits or not? It's like that's a good thing. It's like that's just a byproduct of the system that I'm doing. And it's like this training like really works. It really works. I wouldn't be promoting it if I didn't believe that it actually worked. And I wouldn't be like looking at other people and criticizing, NHL level coaches or top level hockey coaches if I didn't think that there was something that is better. And it's like, it's the same thing with the on ice work. It's the same thing with the off ice work. It's like getting the body more able in every single facet. That's what I do best. And anyone's hockey ability can be trained. Like, you can make yourself into a world-class hockey player from training alone. You do that by dissecting gym standards that are set if you meet certain weight standards, which are easier to measure than on-ice standards. But there's also on-ice standards that you can measure. Some of it is simple, like you have with skating, like a 30-meter sprint or a fastest lap or a hardest shot. Some of it is harder to measure, like a cadence. But that is the way to measure how you're doing versus how these other players are doing. And that is actually how you know you're getting better or not, which is the truest hockey hack of them all, if you want to call it that. I don't mind being cheesy at all, because this is actually a hockey hack. Standards is a hockey hack because it is not being talked about. Video feedback is a hockey hack because it's not being done at the highest levels of hockey. It's like this HEG stuff and methodology and translating that into hockey is a hockey hack because it is not being talked about. It is not being trained. Yeah, we have something big coming for 2024. I think this is the time for it to all come together and all come out. And I am actually really excited for it. I'm going to need more help though, for sure. So if any of you like actually believe in my methodology, I would really appreciate like getting even more support, like people who are actually willing to coach along with me. Like I could definitely use another coach. Like there's no question about that. Like someone else to communicate what I'm working on. It's like I can't do it all myself. It's like we need more growing proof that systems like this work to change people. So if any of you listening can help me out with that, I would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Um, yeah, you're good. I'll just end it off here. But yeah, that's what we have for 2024. Like Jesus, I'm getting old, but I would be way more athletic than I was when I was, younger. How crazy is that? Like I'm gonna get older, I'm gonna be way more athletic and way more able and just everything. It's like that is what is coming up next. So I want to thank you all for listening. I'm gonna head out of the rink, say bye to Sharks Ice, and I will see you all next time.